Hi team, David and I are in reflection mode in this episode. We go through our vision and goals for the Better SMB podcast. But don't panic, there are still some good tips and tricks for the SMB owners and our listeners out there. We really do cover the power of planning, review and adjustment. Oh, don't worry, there are a few questions we ask of you, the listener, at the end, so you gotta hang in there. Now, remember to hit that like button, follow so you can get the heads up on all the new episodes as they are released. And don't worry, there are some cool ones in the pipeline. Anyway, that's enough of my ramblings. Let's listen to this episode. On with the podcast.
Welcome back to the Better SMB, where we're working to become the go-to voice for SMB leaders looking to create high-performing and sustainable businesses. I'm David Alterner.
And I'm Rob Bull.
In February, we posted an annual planning episode where we spent a bit of time on how we're moving the podcast from what was just an idea through being a bit of a hobby and towards an initiative that we want to grow into a national presence. We had a vision that we outlined that we want to become the go-to voice for small and medium business owners and leaders in New Zealand by helping them build high-performing, sustaining businesses by demystifying the jargon and inspiring them to take action. We're now 4 months on from when we recorded that, and it'll be a bit more like 5 months when this episode goes out. But it's really a good opportunity for us to briefly pause, reflect, learn and make some improvements. We decided with 2025 we wanted to start wrapping a bit more planning and structure around what we're doing, and of course life has also happened to both of us, and I know on your side, Rob, you decided you're going to jump into doing a paper.
Amongst all of that, trying to play back in that study game, and then just because life wasn't boring enough, go into a full rebrand and refit for the business. So life does get in the way. Things do happen. And that's why planning is a good thing, because it keeps you on track.
Yeah, absolutely. And I certainly know, if I look at my side of things, I'm massively busy at the moment, working for a startup in the AI space. I'm jumping on calls with the UK at 8, 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night sometimes, and doing a full day, having to jump into planning for what we're doing here, and these sorts of things as well. And I guess there's probably some learnings there about maybe taking on a little bit more than we're set up for and that type of thing. But we're also quite passionate about this subject and wanting to get the message out there and get more business owners wrapped around this idea of how they can build a high-performing business and how it's not actually that difficult. You just need to have a bit of discipline. Since February, we were 11 episodes released. At the moment, we've published 17 now, and we've got 3 in post-production. We had a goal of doing around about 20 episodes this year. We're quite on track with that at the moment. I mean, we may go a month or two over, but I felt coming into the year that 20 number was going to stretch us a little bit. It may still do, but I think if we didn't have it, we wouldn't be putting the frequency into what we're doing.
No, and that's the use of having those metrics there, and you're putting in those metrics from a business plan point of view. Because we're now doing this review, and we kind of loosely say a quarterly review, our discipline should have been bang on 3 months and put this information back into in front of us, because we almost got into the trap of what many businesses and many SMEs do, which is have a plan and then forget about it. Because to be honest, when you were starting to put together the planning for this episode, a lot of this information was dusty. So my learnings from this is I need to get into a bit more of a routine, even monthly, just check in. What did we write? What did we put down on paper? But also, because we set that cadence of 20 episodes for the year, and we're getting halfway, and we're just on that cusp, so we can tweak. We can adjust. What is our countermeasure? Well, our countermeasure might be that over the next couple of months, we might be doing 2 recordings a fortnight to get us ahead. And that's what a plan, response, talking about those metrics can do for an organization. Now, we're an organization of 2 crazy guys who had an interesting idea just over 12 months ago, but it's starting to bear fruit because we have, with those goals, we have had some really awesome increase on our followers. You can go through the stats because I know you've got them in front of you, and a few other little milestones. Maybe not the ones we planned, but when you put it out there, it's kind of that living plan is you set some vision and you might hit some other goals that you didn't even know that was out there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you talked about followers. Just because the numbers are fairly easy to get my hands on from a Spotify perspective, we increased our followers by almost 50%,
Yep.
which in my mind has been pretty good. But then we've increased the plays of our episodes by 65% over that same time.
Yep, and a lot of that's come in the last few months too, with some really epic guests that we've had. And I certainly think the caliber of the guests have really been increasing. I say that carefully because I don't think we've had any dud guests on it, all been able to contribute to that vision that we've set, which is, helping SMBs make sense of this thing around productivity, around business excellence, and how just to run a smarter SMB.
Yeah, we are dropping our market share in the United States. Just saying, it's dropped from not quite 10% to about 7.5%. I don't think that's necessarily the end of the world.
We're south of the border, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it might also stop people reaching out to me from the US wanting to come on and talk about whatever it is they want to talk about.
Yep.
So, that could be quite useful. But really, we're still sort of, in the mid 60% of the audience appears to be male, 30% female. And we've got the balance who aren't kind of specifying or fit into the non-binary space as well. So, you're getting a bit of representation there. We do have an episode that when we release this, we will have done with Rachel King. And so that's getting a few more female guests on the show, and we've got a couple more in the pipeline as well. The other bit that I found really interesting about the vision was it felt like 2 weeks later, after we'd put that out there, released the episode and done that then the New Zealand Manufacturer magazine opportunity came up for us.
Yep. That was the one that I was going to mention. It's a pretty good highlight, though.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I certainly didn't roll into 2025 thinking that I'd be writing an article for a national manufacturing magazine, even after doing the manufacturing work that I did towards the end of last year. So that was quite a surprise. And the other piece is that our article for June is going to be on the front page.
Page 1, front page.
Page 1. We've gone from the last
manufacturing sector. There's got to be more interesting stuff than the things that we throw on a few words around. There's got to be some more there. So there's a challenge for the manufacturing sector. Get us off the page, put us back onto the last word onto the back page. In tongue in cheek, but what we are finding out through doing this, particularly in the stories that are coming out through the manufacturing sector, there are some awesome stories out there, and we need to uncover more of those stories. And it's not just manufacturing, but service industry, professional services. We would love to hear more of those success stories. What is the awesome stuff that's going on? Like, we've talked to Grant Johnson at Rocket Spark, and that was amazing insight about how such a simple website tool created in Cambridge came to fruition and has now been highly successful. We've talked to Ben Kane, one of the best IP lawyers in the world, not just Bay of Plenty, not just in New Zealand, but in the world. He's so sought after. And that was such a good learning episode. And there's the one episode that we're nearly on the cusp of releasing that talks to probably one of the leading manufacturing managing directors in New Zealand. And that is just full of awesome stories.
Yeah, well, that's phenomenal. We haven't decided when that's coming out, so we probably can't talk about it on this episode. It may make it out beforehand, it may not, but that was amazing. I spent the whole time just taking notes.
Yeah. So, no, I think 4 months, 5 months into setting that plan, I think we're on track. We're looking at our stats. We're going further. We want, obviously, more followers. This is where I pause and go, if you are listening to this, hit that like button and that following button or whatever platform you're using, the button that you should be doing to support us, because the more we have, the more we can get out there and share the stories around New Zealand. So it's so important. And the more we play in this game, the more I totally appreciate all the other podcasts that I listen to when they go, hit that like button, please share, give us a rating, all of those things, because it does actually matter. Oh. And we love seeing the numbers go up.
Absolutely. And the other thing for me, just looking at the trend, and I mean, I do the Spotify publishing side of things for us, and the thing I've really noticed is key metric that we talked about was, as Seth Godin says, and I talked about this when we did the planning episode at the start of the year. Seth Godin talks about shipping it, right? Don't try and polish it. Don't wait for perfection. Ship it. Get it out there.
Yep.
But the thing that is really obvious, and the thing for us that's driven those percentage growths and followers and listens and all those types of things, has actually been just simply creating content, publishing episodes, getting it out there. Every time there's an episode published, there's a spike in the plays. And that's because we push it out via Spotify. We're posting on LinkedIn about the show, the episodes, the insights. We've started with the companion guides, putting those out on LinkedIn as well, so people can download a companion guide that can support them through some of what we may have discussed in an episode. And that all seems to just be helping gather that momentum. But on that episode with that manufacturing leader of that really successful business, they talk about following the data. And by looking at that data, you can start to see those trends. If we want to grow quicker, if we want to get double the amount of followers or whatever, then maybe we need to shorten those intervals between when we're putting out content. At the same time, the other side of that sword is we need to make sure the quality's up there still and we're not just putting crap out there.
Which means we need to uncover more of those stories and even get questions from the followers and people who are listening. If you're curious about a topic, we want to actually talk about topics that are triggering questions and curiosity for people out there in the SME world for around New Zealand or internationally. Benchmark around some of the issues that owners, leaders in that space are doing. If you do have a topic that you want us to dig into, feel free, send us a message, because then we know that's direct input and we know that we are producing and putting down information that people want to hear.
So that was something else that I had a listener reach out to me directly and say that they would love us to talk about investment.
Yes.
And how to seek investment or why you might seek investment and these sort of things. So I've got the chairman of a venture capital company that we will be looking to get on to talk about that. I reached out to him and asked if he wanted to jump on, and he talked about how he thinks the tendency of New Zealand SMBs is that they poorly allocate capital one way or another. Now, the interesting thing, if I was to say that to most SMB owners, I'm not quite sure what they'd think about that. Capital? How do I allocate? The great thing is going to be actually getting him to drill into, what do you mean by that? what do you mean by capital allocation and so forth, and actually being able to get to the bottom of that, because it felt a little bit too high level for a typical business owner. I guess that was also part of the question, and why that listener reached out was that's a subject they'd like us to drill into and kind of explain in everyday language.
Yeah, and it is that's part of our big passion project, is to translate some of the discussions, and it goes back to one of the original episodes, which we've done a follow-up on with all the economic porting, which makes no sense for the day-to-day operations of an SMB in New Zealand. So definitely I've got the curiosity flag waving high on that investor series, really, because there will be a couple of other episodes we will need to do on the back of that one. So it's just really helping us put together a really cool series of discussions that we know that people are wanting, because we've had that feedback. So absolutely, I'm looking forward to that one. If he can make it understandable for me, then he has done a great job.
And it wouldn't be a good episode if we also didn't talk about our need to move away from the bootstrap technology side of things as well that we were working with, and starting to try and move more in the direction of something that will help us collaborate a little bit better. And of course, we're in the process of moving off a combination of we've been using Teams and we've been using Google and all kinds of things. And what we're starting to do is try and centralize what we're doing to make it more streamlined for us to work together, cut down the time we've got to spend jumping into different things. But there's also a little bit of a learning curve on that one, probably on both sides of the fence for us as well.
Again, that just mirrors exactly what happens out there in businesses and SMB land. Is what worked at the start and what was okay at the start and at the beginning and at the early stages of your business, or in this case, what to call, is it a business where we don't earn or ask any money just yet, but as an organization or an entity. But now we need to adapt and change and improve, and that's come through loud and clear on a number of the episodes that we've talked about. Is you need to be always reflecting, changing, and improving to meet your current way of working and your current needs and your current set of deliverables. You can't carry on doing what worked at the beginning. It's no longer a viable product or a process. So what we're going through is really a reflective, albeit a smaller, less risky scale than what many SMBs out there face every day. And they wonder why they suddenly struggle, because they haven't done that adaptation.
Dead right.
So, David, we're slowly becoming that voice, that go-to voice that hopefully represents some of the challenges and issues of SMBs. What else do we need to do over the next 4 to 6 months for the rest of 2025 to keep achieving that from your perspective?
Well, we've put the goal out there of wanting to play a part in the political cycle next year. And I think some of the things we've got planned for articles that we're putting out in the New Zealand Manufacturer magazine, shout out for the July article that we might be writing on the government, have that potential to raise our profile in that type of area, and not for the sake of just wanting to throw hand grenades and that sort of thing, but certainly just to provide the voice of the SMB owner up into those government or advisory kind of ranks, so that we can start seeing some positive change that will make it to the ground level. I think really for us, it's about starting to lift our profile just gradually, bit by bit. And of course, we've got that guest that's going to be coming on. I think we've got them scheduled in for the end of this month, that you happened to bump into at the airport, wasn't it?
Yeah. Never miss an opportunity to ask a cheeky question. But going back to the politics, well, it's still on the same subject, really, and that's a bit of a teaser on who we might be getting on in a few weeks' time. But what I really want to see is having the opportunity to get all the politicians from right across the spectrum to actually talk through what their long-term vision is, because we hear a lot of short-term stuff, and I've been doing a lot of reading, particularly around Toyota, as I do with all the lean thinking information, and it's really interesting around the reflections of Eastern Hemisphere type approach, and it's all about long-term thinking, and sometimes at the expense of short-term issues or wins and all of that. And what we tend to find, particularly in the political spectrum, is the short-term gains and the quick wins and the quick changes to see, hey, let's get the economy going for the next quarter. Whereas they take, certainly in the Japanese world and through the Eastern countries, is a lot more long-term thinking. So if you've got questions for politicians, we're starting to get into that space. So please throw them our way again, because we want to hit them with the reality. But also I definitely want to see what the long-term thinking, how do they expect this to play out in 10 years' time? If we worked really hard, can we become the new Ireland or supersede Ireland in 10 years' time? And it's definitely the opportunity to do that.
And that kind of Asian, Eastern kind of long-term thinking, I've also got a guest lined up who's going to come in from the Māori world and talk about that. And I find that really fascinating as well. This idea that you're a caretaker of something for your children's children's children. So I'm looking after something for people that I may never meet. It's just such a very different philosophy compared to almost what I'd call yacht racing, with the political cycle and the 3 yearly elections and these sorts of things. We're going this way, no, we're going this way. And we all kind of have that overarching broad goal, but it's just, what's the move we're doing in the next 6 months, 3 years, whatever it is, that we think is going to get us that little bit further ahead. And I like what you're talking about, this idea of broader alignment on some of those things, right? We desperately need a North Island rail network, desperately. Golden Triangle. How do we get alignment on that so we can just start making it happen? Maybe that's a question for that person we'll be talking to in a few weeks.
Could be. Any other big goals before the end of the year for you and the Better SMB podcast, David?
I've got a little bit of a data idea floating around, and I'm talking to a few people in that space. Again, with this idea of, if we're going to become the go-to voice for small and medium business owners and leaders, and we're going to help them build high-performing businesses, and a big part of my research on this space, business performance, productivity, and that sort of thing, it all comes back to data and being able to benchmark and know, where do you sit? Are you above or below the line? What direction are you headed in? What does good look like? What does great look like? Yeah, there's some work around that, and that probably loosely ties into one of our goals around sponsorship. And while we're doing this collaboration with New Zealand manufacturer, we could loosely call that a sponsorship of sorts, building more around that and ideally being able to land a sponsor. That would be great.
Let's get straight to the point. We want a couple of sponsors to really back this. One, so we can put it into, where would we put it into? Marketing, so we can raise the profile even more and get the voice of SMB owners around New Zealand out there louder and stronger. It would help. It would definitely help giving some back end resource to do all the editing and the organisation that we're doing amongst our day jobs. There is definitely scope for us to get some sponsors so we can actually just leverage all of the opportunities that are starting to bubble up. So it's a little bit of cart before the horse, because our numbers aren't absolutely peaking, but it's growing. They're growing all the time. And I guess it's for those brave organisations out there who might be thinking that they could have a rough diamond in the network, absolutely can. So I'm going to go out there, cap out. We're open for conversation. If you're interested in putting your name on an early starter podcast so we can grow together and, have some fun.
Absolutely. If we bring that back to measurement and we think about the lead and the lag measures that we talked about, and I think this is good because it's, we talked about this idea of consistency. recording cadence, those sort of things, having a pipeline of content. We've now got a plan for episodes for quite a while that we're going to be doing, along with articles we've got to write. So we've got a lot of that lead stuff under control. We've got a narrative arc around what we're wanting to talk about and how everything kind of links together. Those are the lead pieces. The lag pieces, the plays and the followers, they're heading in the right direction. The sponsors, as you've said, we're looking for sponsors. You don't want to hear us busking to have to try and raise the money so that we don't have to do our own editing and so forth. So please do sponsor us. We've got the guest pipeline starting to come together as well. In fact, I'm looking at the guest pipeline and we've got more guests in the pipeline than we've had on the show already.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's an interesting. So, I didn't even know that. Yeah.
That's awesome. Part of the technology training that we're doing. That I'll show you where the guest pipeline is. Yeah. There's quite a lot that's starting to happen and it's just starting to bubble away under the surface. And I really think this kind of next quarter, maybe the next 4 or 5 months, is going to be about consolidation. I've got a trip to Europe where I'm going to be spending a lot of time looking at how people get around in Europe, that whole transport situation, what the kind of main industries people are doing. We'll probably try and do an episode or two while I'm over there. Not sure who's going to take the early and late shift, but we'll see how that rolls. Yeah, so it's going to be certainly quite a working holiday from that regard, because I'm really, really interested how the European nations work and why they are just that much better. Not talking about the islands of the world who are just miles ahead of everyone else, but I mean, we just look at the Germanys, the Swiss, those kinds of places, compare them with places that aren't doing as well. Also, get boots on the ground.
Do an episode while you're traveling on the train around Europe would be fantastic. Really delivers to your need to crowdfund a train system through the Golden Triangle to get that one moving.
So there's boys' toys.
Happening. There's lots happening.
So we've been a bit rambling all over the place on this one. As you'll see, getting a bit of time to just reflect, talk about what's happening, talk about what's coming up, realizing there's a few things going on in your business that you might not have even known were there, with a bit of surprise for Rob with our guest pipeline. These are the things that happen when you can actually stop, take a step back, get some perspective, look at what you've managed to achieve, where you're going, and make some of those course corrections. Or if you're on track, just recognize that and just keep doing what you're doing. As our manufacturing leader said in the episode, which we're not sure if it'll be released prior to this or not, tease that out a bit more. Why not? It's not sexy.
I always get mixed up on the order of episodes. For the listeners out there, we don't release in the same order necessary than what we record. So, hey, it's always an interesting learning curve when David goes, "It's this one coming out this week." Oh, brilliant.
Hey, shuffle the cards and you see where they fall, right? As he said, it's not sexy. It's about planning. It's about discipline. It's about executing on that plan and then making sure you're on track. If you can work through that reflection piece, understand your vision, make sure that's still compelling and head it in the direction you want, understand what those drivers are, those key drivers of performance in your business, and then just keep taking those actions to make sure that you're delivering at a high level. That's what it's all about. So, thank you for listening to the Better SMB. It's a little bit of a shorter one this time, and see what this one goes like. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.